Well, hey, Vision. Okay, and one of the stories we're going to tell today is going to include three boys in it, kind of similar maybe to three teenage boys here at Vision. And here at Vision, of course, we intend to partner with families from preschool through elementary and raise boys like this. Boys that will spend time either in kids ministry or student ministry learning about what we call life apps. Those are virtues that truly can help us on this journey. Boys like this that can come to Ignition or camp or 180 weekend and have hang time and have food and have teaching and music and small group interaction that will help them on their journey. When you look at boys like this, Charlie and Joshua and Henry, and you laugh at their shirts or their hats or the way, we look at camp with them. I get to camp with them and our hair's all like this stuff, but these boys, just like the boys in the story today, get shaped on their journey for what they're going to face. Here at our church, we take it so seriously. From the babies through our high school seniors, to pour into them because they are going to have the same type of issues we do about facing fear, about facing stress, about having things that scare them. And in fact, as we talk today about a couple different stories, we're going to deal with a problem. And this problem is that, honestly, when we get scared, we have a hard time really believing that God can take care of us. Whether it's those boys, whether it's the boys in the story we look at today, whether it's the visionary you hear from today, whether it's you or you or you, we all have this problem, if we're being real, that when we get scared, sometimes we have a really hard time believing that God can truly still take care of us. But the good news is there is an app for that. It's called Trust. And we talk about life apps. We pull that from our kids ministry, this concept of life apps. And we got these apps up here on the backstage. We started this one over here with the weights. We talked about commitment the first week. And last week with the smiley face, we talked about joy. And today with this fire, we're talking about trust. So that when we go through times, when we get scared, literally we go through the fire, or we face a mountain we can't climb, something happens in our life that we are scared. If we're being real here, do our emotions not try to shift us, say, God can't take care of you through that. God's not with you anymore. God can't help you get over that mountain. And we get in this spot where we lock down because of fear, being scared. Now, I need your help on something. I need everybody to pull out a blue connection card. It's in the chair in front of you, or if you're sitting in the front row, grab one behind you so that you have a connection card and a pen. And I'm going to need everybody to do this today so that sometime during the message, you're going to write down something that you're scared about, or something that in 2018 maybe you're going to have to overcome, or something in your world to say, man, I would love to have more strength in trusting God to deal with this. You choose whether you put your name on it or not. I'm going to get all these, and I will pray for you. I promise you that. If you don't put your name on it, that's cool. And I'll say, okay, God, there's somebody in our church dealing with financial stress. There's somebody in our church dealing with this type of fear. But if you put your name on it, and we'll keep it private between me and our care team, we'll keep it private. But I promise you, when you turn it in today, and you're going to have a chance right here in the last song to turn it in, because when we take our fears and we literally lay it at the cross, at the feet of Jesus, something supernatural happens. And you're like, man, it's just a piece of paper. Man, it's just a wood box. No, there's something symbolic when you actually write it down and you give it away. So sometime during this message, and in fact, right at the end of it, I'll actually give you about 60 seconds to focus on writing something on there. But you can write it before if you want. But together, we're going to put something on those connection cards that I believe God will help you with, so that when we face fear and we're scared and our emotions say, God can't help you through that, you can say, no, actually, I can trust God no matter what. In fact, that's our bottom line today. And it's not a complicated one, because in our elementary ministry, they got three basic truths, and this is one of them. So repeat after me. I can trust God no matter what. Let me tell you this before I start digging in. A couple years back in ministry, I heard through kind of like the Orange Network, that's a network of churches that use Orange curriculum, about a kid who literally was kidnapped. And when he was kidnapped, and before they found him and got him back, when he was kidnapped, he kept saying in his mind, I can trust God no matter what. I can trust God no matter what. I can trust God no matter what. And afterwards, when people were asking him, and how'd you do it? How'd you hold up with what you were going through? He said, I couldn't remember a lot of things, but I could remember that my church, not ours, but a church surrounded the country, taught him I could trust God no matter what. And now I'm not all of just like positive thinking just to try to talk yourself through something. I'm all into getting a truth that you can stand on. So as we build on this truth today, that I can trust God no matter what, I want you to lock in and take this personally. Because when I came over here yesterday to finish preparing for today, and I was sitting right here praying for you guys, and I was thinking about how I felt 4 years ago when I went in on a Monday and resigned my job because I believed God wanted me to plant a church. And as I sat here last night, I was like, man, you were nuts. Oh my goodness, that is so scary. I mean, you think about it. If you got a job, you get a paycheck every week, you got stability, you could probably have it the rest of your life if you want that job, and you're going to give it up for something else. Oh man, that puts fear in my heart even right now thinking about it. So whatever your fear is, whatever you're scared of, and you say, man, can I really trust God no matter what? Then dial in for the next little bit, and let's help each other on this journey. There's 3 parts to this journey. Part 1, I'm calling it the walls of J-Town. Okay, the walls of J-Town. We're looking back in the Old Testament by this guy named Joshua. This guy Joshua, who I believe lived out this process that we can live out, this process or a pattern. And now if you know me, I'm big on process. I think if you get a good process and you work it, then truly you can see God work. Now, it's not a system. You can't say, I do these things, and God will have to do this. No, but you work out a process, you will see God work. So this guy, Joshua, he is going to show us this process, a 4-part process that we're going to see in another story, and we're going to see in a current day visionary. But this process starts off with knowing God. Knowing God. You say, okay, man, that's so basic, right? When I'm facing my fears, sure, right? Know God, get saved. No, let's not make this too complicated. If you want to be able to trust God no matter what, you have to know him. And I'm not talking about just salvation the first time. I'm talking you got to know him. I mean, like a relationship. You're not so far from him that you don't know what he wants to do, what he's thinking, where to find him. You got to know God and be close. The first part of this process is knowing God. And when we look in Joshua, Joshua's in a spot where he felt like God had spoken to him and said, you're going into Jericho and you're going to take down these walls around this big, fortified, dangerous city, but you're going to do it my way. And Joshua says, okay, God, I know you, so I'm listening to you. Our story picks up in Joshua 5. When this angel, this bright light, gets in front of Joshua, see how he responds. Then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, the angel, what message does the Lord have for my servant? So literally he's saying, okay, you are a representative of God, the God I believe in, the God I know. My instant reaction is I got to hit my knees. I'm going to bow in reverence. And what does God have to say to me? So I see in this moment that Joshua is saying, okay, I know God. He drives me to my knees. He's got something for me. Well, it continues in Joshua 6 when he hears from God. It says, the Lord said to Joshua, see, I have delivered Jericho into your hands along with its king and its fighting men. So make sure you understand, you're laying the groundwork to this whole process. You got to know God, not just know about God, not just even be saved by God, but you have to have a relationship with him that leads into the second part of the process, which is remembering his faithfulness. Because Joshua, in this moment, when he's getting ready to head toward the thing that scares him, he remembers God's faithfulness. If you know much about the history of the Israelites, back in about 1450 BC, when they were being held captive by the Egyptians, and they're saying, God, please get us out of here. Please rescue us from this. God sends all these plagues. He does these crazy things to Egypt where the Egyptians finally say, okay, get out of here and go. And they start going. Well, the Israelites start going and they come up to the Red Sea. And if you know anything about that story, they come up to this huge mass of water, and now the bad guys are coming after them, and they're like, we're going to die. We're going to die. What is God going to do in this moment? And God parts the Red Sea. They go on through. They go through the Red Sea. They go into the desert. They're getting hungry like we would. They're complaining like we would. They say, God, please take care of us. Remember what you did stuff, God. You did it. Will you feed us now? And God does. He rains down food and drink for them. So they're remembering what he had done. So Joshua, I believe in this moment, when he's standing before Jericho, he says, okay, I know God. I'm remembering his faithfulness because God has moved mountains for my people in the past, and I believe he can do it again. Now, I need your help today. Whenever I say, do it again, you respond right back by saying, do it again. So let's try it. Do it again.
Do it again.
Okay, so in your moments, when you're facing your fear, and you say, okay, I know God, and I'm going to remember his faithfulness because God, you did it before, you're going to do it again.
Do it again.
Okay? So Joshua, he goes into part 3, says, okay, I'm going to trust him now. Not just I trust God in general, or really even, okay, I trust him no matter what, but like now, in this moment, I trust him now. Yes, I trust God no matter what. I trust him now. And I think Joshua, he takes a deep breath. He looks at these walls, says, okay, God, this scares me, but me and you, we can do this. And I broke this piece down into a little subsection because for me, I really have to know, like, what do I do in that moment? I mean, like, Alice, when you're scared and you're facing that moment, and you're like, okay, I want to trust God right now. Pastor Matt, what do I do? Well, here's what I encourage you to do. You pray. You gather all the information you can. You talk to some wise people, and you pray again. So literally, when you're in that moment, you're like, God, okay, I'm trusting you. I'm trusting you. First of all, you relax. And you talk to God and say, God, you show me what to do. You gather all the information you can because I believe when you do that, you're giving God a chance to show you the way. You talk to wise people. It's another way. God will show you the way, and then you pray again. So you put that together in a package and say, okay, God, I'm going to trust you now because I'm going to trust you no matter what. And that leads to the fourth piece of walking by faith. That Joshua faces those walls. He knows God. He's remembering God's faithfulness. He's trusting God right now. And just like you in your moment of fear, when you're scared, you got to move. He's going to walk by faith. They put the ark out in front. They get marching. They follow God's orders. And on your takeaway card, you'll see I indicated several different chapters in Joshua that I want you to read this week. And when you read it and you see they put the ark first, that's symbolic of you putting God first. You're marching in that fear, you put God first. You follow his orders, you do what he says, so that truly you can walk by faith, you leave those results up to God, and look what happens in Joshua 6. It says, when the trumpet sounded, the army shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the men gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed. So everyone charged straight in, and they took the city. So what I see here, God, do it again.
Do it again.
God did it again. God, just like when they were in the captivity, just like when they were at the Red Sea, just like when they were in the desert needing food, they needed God to do it again, and he did. And those walls came down. So let's fast forward to part 2 then. I call it the fire incident. The fire incident. And to personalize this again, you think about our 3 teenage boys. Okay, this isn't just 3 boys, 600 BC. I mean, a long time ago. This could be our boys. This could be Charlie and Joshua and Henry when they faced their moments in the fire incident. When they had to say, okay, what is this process again Pastor Matt was talking about of knowing God? Because these boys in this story, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they knew God. They were Israelites. They lived in Jerusalem. They got raised in, Viz Kids or Ignite or something like that in their hometown. Whatever their process was to get to know God, that's what they did. Because at some point, they got kidnapped and taken away to a foreign land. And sometimes we read that and we're like, oh, that's bad. No, that's terrible. I mean, the 3 boys I put on the screen, if they got kidnapped and taken to a foreign land to go through what I call the Babylonian boot camp, where they got their hair shaved, put on different clothes, they got brainwashed, they're trying to feed them food from idols. Those 3 boys are going through Babylonian boot camp. They thought they knew God. I mean, they did know God back home, but I tell you, when you're going through that type of stress, you're getting to know God. You're trying to truly refine yourself in your walk. Say, God, I know you. I know you. And they didn't realize that something much worse than boot camp is coming. So we got these 3 boys, and they know God in this fire incident. Now, the second part of this thing is they head toward this fear that is going to be bigger than any fear they'd ever have in their life, they got to remember God's faithfulness. I think they're thinking back, okay, God, we've heard of our ancestors. We heard of Moses and the Red Sea. We heard of Joshua and Jericho. And we knew you back home. And where we're at right now, they're trying to brainwash that out of us. We won't let that go, God. We're going to trust you no matter what, God. No matter what happens, we're going to remember your faithfulness. He had moved mountains before. He could do it again. Because they had no idea that what was coming was worse than anything they'd ever faced before. So this fire incident is getting closer. They were going to face their biggest test yet. The third piece is to trust him now. That in this moment, you're going to watch this in a minute, of how they could trust him now. And I want us to get this, that in our moments, when we look at the bank balance, we're like, God, there is no way we can make it. When you're at the doctor and they said something to you, say, oh, it's over. How are we going to make it? When it's a relationship that's falling apart, you're like, God, I can't make it with this. How can I trust you now? You go back to this process of saying, God, I know you. God, I'm remembering your faithfulness. So God, in this moment, I'm going to trust you now. And you walk by faith. You walk by faith so that these guys, in this moment, their choice in this fire incident to stand for God. I mean, literally, to stand up when no one else would stand. When you're going to see here, they were told that you got to bow down to this idol. You have to, in this moment, disregard God and bow down to this. They had no idea about how scary this was going to be until they got right there, right into a fire. Check this out. Did God do it again? Yes, he did it again. Whew, man. Think about in your moment when you're facing something that scares you so much that your emotions are telling you, man, God can't get you through that. As they headed toward that fire, knowing God and trying to remember his faithfulness and say, okay, God, we're going to trust you. We're going to walk by faith. That's us. I mean, that's our story. And I want you to make sure you catch this right, because when you read it, and I want you to get into Daniel this week. I gave you the chapters. You go in there and you read this story in depth, that there's a moment in it when you see the intensity of their faith, because in Daniel 3, they say to Nebuchadnezzar, if we're thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it. And he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he doesn't, we want you to know, your majesty, we're not going to serve your gods, worship the image of gold you set up. We're not going to do that. And we have to get to a point in our walk where we know that God is so much bigger than the circumstance. That the world will say, no, he failed you. He let you down. You say, no, I can trust my God no matter what. And you work this process. And God will move mountains. God will do it again. Come on now, do it again.
Do it again.
He will do that in our lives. He's still doing it in our lives. So in fact, I want to invite up Meredith Mann. Meredith, come on up here and grab a microphone. And Meredith is part of our Vision family here. And I love her and Scott and their kids. And in fact, Meredith, I just found just a beautiful picture of your family. And so come on and grab a seat. And we love their family. And as we go to part 3 of this thing, I call it the C word. The C word. I think we've all had times where we face something in life that feels like how you would expect it to feel when you face the C word. So Meredith, why don't you give us a brief overview of what's been going on in your life the last couple months?
Well, for those of you that don't know, back in October, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so I've had they found cancer in both breasts. And so I had a double mastectomy, and I'm waiting on reconstruction, which will be hopefully in March.
This has been heavy on our Vision family. It's been heavy on my family. It's been heavy on me. And so I was preparing this message and asked her, said, could we talk through this process then of knowing God and remembering his faithfulness and trusting him and walking by faith? I said, let's walk through this in your journey. So, I have certainly seen how you know God. So first of all, how's that first piece of this process? How is that factored into the C word for you, knowing God? What has that meant to you?
Well, I guess let's go back about a year, where back in February of last year, I had a mammogram in January, your annual mammogram, and they brought me in for some additional pictures, and they wanted to take some more look, and they did a ultrasound on the right side, and at that moment, as I'm laying there on the table and they're doing their procedure, I realized that this could be, it could be cancer, and where do I go from here? That this is pretty big, pretty heavy, and I start to just tell everything to God. And it turned out that back in February they cleared me. They said they didn't find anything that they wanted to explore any further. But then in the spring, I started feeling a pain and a lump and in the other side, and so I went in September to get a mammogram. I mean, I wasn't due for one until this next February. So I used my God-given intuition and my gut, and I went in and got it checked out, and turns out that I had cancer. And then they started looking even further to the right side, which they had already been looking at in February and dismissed me, but they found cancer in that side too. And so when they did the biopsy for the first side, and they set up an appointment to come back in and discuss the results of the biopsy, and that appointment was scheduled for 3:30 on Monday afternoon, and they called me Monday morning and said, we need you to come in early, and we need to take more pictures. And I knew then. And so I didn't want to worry about it. I didn't want to get my emotions all stirred up until I knew for sure, but I went downstairs and I talked to Scott and told him about the change of time because he was working from home so he could adjust his schedule. And we just kind of looked at each other and had like this quiet resignation of this could be our new reality, but we didn't really say anything to each other. We went ahead and went in there, and then they set us down and told us that they'd found cancer. And the whole time they were talking to me, and I swear they were speaking English, but they're like giving all these Italian words, Latin words for trying to describe the cancer. And I'm like, I sure hope my husband's absorbing some of this information because I'm not absorbing any of it. I'm not comprehending all these words. But, I just talked to God, and I said, God, you have to take care of this. You have to be there. You have to walk us through this. And you have to put people in our lives to help us on this journey. And he did that. I mean, doctors, nurses, the triage nurse prayed with us before surgery. And that meant so much to us. Family, friends, my vision family. Oh, you guys have no idea how much your prayers and your love and your gifts and your generosity has meant to me and our family throughout this whole time. And from everybody, from people that they've put me in touch with that have been through what I'm going through, and to get advice, and like you said, we have to pray, and then we have to gather all information, and we have to talk to wise people, and then we pray again. And that I've been doing that, and even when we get advice, we have to pray for discernment and wisdom to know that that's the path we're going to take. And even the choice that I've made for my reconstruction is not the choice my breast surgeon would recommend for me. She's trying to talk me out of it, but I know that it's the right choice for me. And so, with God's help, I have peace. I have peace with the choices that we've made.
If you don't know this family, it's so clear that they know God. Not just of God or have been saved, but they know God. And they've seen God do miracles in Scott's life. They've seen, Meredith's story about, coming out of a cult, of being a Jehovah's Witness, and miracles there, and in their kids and their family. They know God. They remember his faithfulness. The things they have seen him do, and even just in the last couple year window, even at Vision, these are major players in what God does here. The way they're investing in kids and people at our church and seeing, I mean, every time we show baptism pictures, somehow you show up in them because you're baptizing kids. It's like, it's so great when you think of remembering God's faithfulness. So when you say, I can trust God no matter what, that's one of your 3 basic truths. I mean, she runs production in Trailblazer. They're constantly talking about these basic truths. So when you have to face up close, I can trust God no matter what, and then you make a choice to walk by faith, how's that going?
Well, it's going pretty well. I mean, you have to walk the walk. You know, if you're going to talk the talk, you got to do it. You know, kids, you can't fool them. You know, adults, we can fool each other, but kids, they see right through you. You know, and if I'm back there trying to teach them to trust God no matter what, I better be doing it. Yeah. I have to trust God no matter what. And, you know, like the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they knew that God might deliver them from that fire, but they didn't know for sure. You know, they probably thought this was the end. This was it. This is our death. We're going into that fire to our death. But they still trusted God no matter what. You know, and same with everybody. You know, everybody, we don't know for sure. We're not promised tomorrow. You know, we have to trust God no matter what.
And the main verse, he said, that's meant something to you. One of my favorites, and in a slightly different translation. So let's pull this up. Philippians 4:6. Why don't you read us out?
Right. It's no coincidence I read this verse between worship songs last week. And, you know, it's one of my favorite verses, but I love this translation, and it just gets right to the point. It says, don't worry about anything. That's pretty much how I live my life, you know, and it's right there. It's God's word. Paul says, don't worry about anything. Instead, tell God about everything. Ask and pray. Give thanks to him. And I guess that's it. You know, I take him for his word. I don't worry about it. I know that God's got this, no matter what.
Okay, guys. Let's thank Meredith for sharing her story. Wow. Meredith, thank you so much. I do. I love that family. I love doing ministry with them. And honestly, I love how they minister to me and my family until they love us so much. They love Jesus so much, and your kids so much, and you so much. And so as we get ready to head toward our response song, we're going to do it a little bit different today. Again, I want you to take out a connection card. Okay? And again, you've got the freedom to put your name on it or not. Or maybe you got to write something on there and then immediately fold it because you don't want anybody else to see it. That's totally fine. But I'm going to give you about 60 seconds, and I'm going to sit up here and I'm going to write mine. And as the band comes up and as our stage team is going to take the cross here and move it right in front, my invitation to you is that during our response song, you take this thing and you walk up here and you drop it in that box. And I promise you, there is something even symbolic in just your movement of faith to walk and put something somewhere. There's nothing magical in that, but there is something powerful in that. So if you would, just take 60 seconds and write something on your card, and then I'll wrap this up. All right, well, I've got mine, and mine is personal. But I put my name on it, but I'm folding mine up, and when I get down to worship, I'll drop mine in there. I want you to remember that God knows your name. He wants to move mountains for you. He wants to do it again. He wants to do it again.
Do it again.
He wants to do it again.
Do it again.
Like he did for Moses, like he did for Joshua, like he did for those 3 teenage boys, like he did and is doing for Meredith. He wants to do that. He loves having power and having it work in and through your life.